every now and then I just get to have some fun and bring someone onto the show who, man, is just a brother, someone I love talking to. Every time we talk, man, it's like picking up a conversation from a few days ago. Paul Hawkinson is a Wall Street career person, and after 17 years, man, moved to a life of impact and purpose. He says in his own words, he's privileged to develop a portfolio of projects. Look at that portfolio. He still can't help the Wall Street language.
Can't help it. Can't help it.
Develop a portfolio of deep personal, meaningful projects. And he's also the co-founder of Transform Capital. Also my former Bible study leader, which is how we met. So Paul, welcome to the Coiling Solution, brother.
James, so good to be with you always.
It's good to be with you, man. This is long overdue, man. Listen, let's start here. You know, I know a bit about you, but for those who don't know you, and even for those who know you pretty well, what's one thing you think you can share that they may not know about you?
It's a good question. You know, I spent most of my life on Wall Street, right, in deal making and finance and in what would often be viewed as kind of a technical discipline, right?
Yeah.
But I'm really not anywhere near the most quantitative person, the most technical person. I think one of my advantages has been creativity.
Yeah.
And, you know, often we hear the word creative and we think immediately, rightfully so, of an artist or a musician but I think I'm a creative. I think I'm a creative and I deploy that in a different frame. I think creativity is a mindset. Yeah. It's not a skill set. And I think sometimes, you know, business people in particular aren't given the credit for having the capacity to be creative.
That's a good summation, because, you know, it's so funny. Actually, now that I think about the conversations we've had, man, you don't come across as that quantitative Wall Street type that we're used to. You know, I've grown up in financial services too, so I get it.
Not smart enough, man. I'm not smart enough.
Yeah, everything's like, you know, everything is, where does it fit in the P&L or the balance sheet, right? And nah, brother, you float in a different space. To that point, you know, first of all, getting into investment banking is hard, right? And for those who don't know, what would you say in terms of the percentage of people who enter financial services who may want to get there? What does that percentage look like in terms of, you know, how tight it gets at the top, people who may float into investment banking?
Yeah, you know, it's interesting. I worked for a couple of years, went back to Kellogg to grad school. And, you know, clearly it's changed a little bit in the last 20 years for sure, with grad studies being kind of less important than they were. But definitely at the time, right, being at one of the top B schools was the first step to getting into that funnel. Yeah. And then I think I had an added disadvantage, which was I went to a small private school that no one had heard of. And so obviously a lot of Ivy League flow undergrad into investment banking. And so, you know, the percentages are quite low, right? If you're going to an undergrad institution that's a second tier institution and your desire is to get into banking, you're probably going to need to find another pathway as a bridge, which Kellogg was for me. So it's a wild, but also a wonderful space to kind of draw experience from, and then hopefully do something more redeeming for humanity with the skills that you picked up during that journey.
Well, that's a big hopefully, right? Because I mean, one, it takes, you know, given the amount of time it takes to get there. And I mean, and then the amount of time once you're there pounding, you know, 60-hour, 80-hour weeks and so on and so forth. We've all seen the depictions in movies and whatnot. But I think if you talk to someone who's done it, they'll tell you, well, those aren't far off depictions, right? And so,
Indeed.
So to get there and then to also have the financial gain, to also have what probably looks similar to, it's almost like being a college professor, right? If you got to that point where you become minted and you can hang around and you can see the longevity of it, right? Move up to, you know, maybe move from a larger firm to a smaller firm and become a partner, so on and so forth. You can kind of look at that whole runway and go, oh, I'll just stay here. I mean, what is there not to like after I've put in my time? But to transition from that to purpose-driven work, impactful work, talk about what led to that transition.
You know, it's fascinating, James, and this won't surprise you. When you're on that track and you're doing really well, even mission-hearted people around you, people from the church, you know, tend to allow you to cop out sometimes, right? It's something like, hey, you're killing it in investment banking, just keep doing that, right? Because you can be generous or whatever it is.
Mm.
And to be honest, I got to a point, if I was in it 17 years, probably 16 of those years, at some point during the year, I wondered what I was doing with my life. I saw the creativity on Wall Street. I grew up in the city of Chicago, played basketball in a lot of communities with my teammates that were suffering. And I always wondered, right, what is the way to redeem some of this
Mm.
creativity for the benefit of someone other than Blackstone, right, or
Yeah.
another
Yeah.
private equity firm? And
Yeah.
so, what I would say is I call it self-forced calling. No one else
Mm.
was telling me I needed to get out. I was telling
Right.
myself. And so eventually I put myself on a countdown and I
Mm.
said, you know
Mm.
what?
Mm.
2 more years. I don't care how well it's going. I'll just keep copping out. And so I'm done
Yeah.
in 2 years. And that's been the greatest gift of my life, is about 10 years ago, walking away and seeking higher purpose.